There comes a moment in every life when something breaks. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, almost politely. And that moment is when you realize that the person you gave your time, your patience, your softness, and your hope to can walk away without shaking. And what truly dies in that moment is not love, but the illusion that love was ever under your control. And Stoic philosophy begins exactly there. Not in comfort, not in motivation, but in the brutal clarity that people are not possessions, emotions are not commands, and attachment is not strength, but risk. Because the Stoics understood something modern relationships still refuse to accept, that the most dangerous prison is emotional dependence. The moment your peace depends on another person's behavior, silence, validation, or presence, you have handed your freedom away without realizing it. And this is why Stoicism doesn't teach you to feel less. It teaches you to feel without surrendering yourself. Because love that costs you your self-respect is not love, it is fear wearing a romantic mask. And the Stoic mind cuts through that illusion with ruthless honesty by reminding you that you can care deeply without collapsing, you can commit without clinging, you can give without begging, and you can lose without being destroyed. Because the truth is that no one owes you consistency, no one owes you loyalty, no one owes you permanence, and the pain you feel when someone changes is rarely caused by their actions, but by the expectations you silently built and never questioned, expectations that turned a human being into a promise and a moment into a contract. And when those expectations break, you call it betrayal. But the Stoic calls it reality revealing itself, because people act from their own fears, wounds, desires, and limits, not from your worth. And once you understand that, silence stops feeling like rejection and starts sounding like information, because silence is not always a message about you. Often it is a confession about them. And the dangerously smart person doesn't chase explanations. They read behavior. They don't demand closure. They accept clarity when it arrives quietly, because Stoicism teaches that the need to be understood by everyone is a weakness, and the urge to explain yourself to those who already decided to misunderstand you is self-betrayal. And this is where silence becomes power, not passive silence, but deliberate restraint. The kind that says, I know who I am without your confirmation. I know my value without your attention. I know my direction without your approval. And when you reach that state, arguments lose their grip, manipulation loses its leverage, and emotional games lose their audience, because you stop reacting and start observing. And observation is where control returns, because control was never about controlling others, it was always about governing your responses. And this is why Stoicism is ruthless with attachment, because attachment turns presence into necessity, absence into panic, and love into survival, while Stoic love remains free, grounded, and dignified, able to say, I choose you, without saying, I need you. And that distinction changes everything, because the moment you can be alone without feeling incomplete, you become impossible to exploit. Solitude stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like training, a quiet arena where you meet yourself without distractions, without mirrors, without noise, and you discover whether you actually loved someone or were just afraid of being alone. And most people never face that truth. They replace relationships quickly, not because they healed, but because they escaped, while the Stoic stays, sits in the discomfort, sharpens their mind, strengthens their boundaries, and rebuilds from the inside out, learning that loneliness is not emptiness, but clarity, and that the strongest people are not those surrounded by many, but those who can walk alone without bitterness, because bitterness is attachment refusing to die. And Stoicism teaches acceptance not as surrender, but as final freedom, acceptance of what you cannot change, acceptance of who people show themselves to be, acceptance of endings without rewriting the past to feel better about the present, because the moment you stop asking why it happened and start asking how you will move forward with dignity, you stop being a victim of experience and become its master. And this is where dangerous intelligence is born, not the kind that manipulates, but the kind that cannot be manipulated, the intelligence that understands that begging weakens attraction, that over-explaining erodes respect, that chasing affection teaches others how to devalue you, and that self-respect is the line love is never allowed to cross, because the Stoic does not threaten, does not plead, does not compete. They step back calmly and let reality do the talking, knowing that what stays without force is real, and what leaves without resistance was never meant to stay. And in that calm detachment, there is no hatred, no resentment, no coldness, only clarity. Because the Stoic does not harden their heart, they fortify their mind. They still love, still care, still give, but they no longer bleed for people who refuse to hold them gently. And this is why the Stoic is dangerously smart in relationships, because they understand that peace is more valuable than passion, that consistency matters more than intensity, and that the greatest power is the ability to walk away without burning the bridge or burning yourself. Because when you no longer fear loss, loss loses its power over you. And when you no longer seek completion through others, relationships stop being desperate and start being intentional, chosen, clean, and calm. And that is the final lesson, that freedom is not found in controlling outcomes, but in releasing attachment to them, loving without chains, standing without fear, and moving forward without carrying what was never yours to hold.